There's a 30-second moment that happens in your daily conversations that determines whether you'll be the predator or the prey. Nietzsche identified it over a century ago, but only 3% of people know how to recognize it when it's happening to them. It's so subtle that you'll miss it if you blink, so invisible that most people experience it dozens of times per day without ever knowing. But once you see it, once you understand what's really happening in that critical half-minute, everything changes. Your relationships shift, your power dynamics flip. Your entire understanding of human interaction gets rewritten. The person who masters this 30-second window controls every conversation they enter. The person who doesn't, well, they become everyone else's psychological playground. And right now, in this very moment, you're experiencing one of those 30-second windows. Because the uncomfortable truth you're about to face will either make you close this video and return to comfortable ignorance, or transform you into someone who can never be manipulated again. You're being played. Those 3 words on your screen aren't just a warning, they're a revelation that will shatter everything you thought you knew about human interaction. Because while you've been focused on being kind, accommodating, and understanding, others have been studying you, learning your triggers, mapping your weaknesses, and today, that ends. You clicked on this video because something deep inside you already knows. You've felt that strange unease after certain conversations, that nagging sense that you've been outmaneuvered without knowing how. You've wondered why you always seem to give more than you receive, why your boundaries dissolve like sugar in rain, why you feel manipulated but can't prove it. Well, Nietzsche saw this coming over a century ago, and today we're going to expose the 9 psychological weapons being used against you every single day. By the time this video ends, you won't just recognize these tactics. You'll be immune to them. You'll see the strings before they're pulled, the traps before they're set, the lies before they're told. But fair warning, once you see this clearly, you can never unsee it. Your relationships will change. Your conversations will feel different. Because when you understand the game, everything becomes a choice. Let's begin your psychological awakening. The emotional hijack that's stealing your soul. There's a moment that happens in your life more often than you breathe. Someone asks you for something, you want to say no, but then they just look at you. Not anger, disappointment. Raw, wounded disappointment that makes you the villain who just crushed someone's soul. Welcome to the guilt hijack, the first weapon in the manipulator's arsenal. Nietzsche understood that guilt is a psychological prison built by society to control the strong. Manipulators have weaponized this need for approval. Here's what's happening after your no. They're calculating how much emotional weight to place on your shoulders to make you break. They make their pain your responsibility. Their disappointment is not your debt. When someone makes you feel guilty for protecting yourself, they're revealing their manipulation. Authentic disappointment accepts your choice. Manipulative disappointment sits in your conscience until you cave. You know this crushing weight when someone's face changes after you say no. That voice whispering, "Maybe I'm being selfish." That's not your conscience. That's their programming. Your goodness was never meant to be measured by other people's comfort levels. The antidote: hold the line. Refuse to negotiate with emotional terrorism. Because every time you cave to guilt, You teach them that your boundaries are suggestions, not laws. The reality distortion field that makes you question everything. You walk into a room knowing exactly what happened. You've been wronged, and you're ready to address it. 10 minutes later, you're apologizing. How? You're experiencing the reality scrambler, so sophisticated that you'll doubt your own memory before their innocence. Here's the playbook. You confront them about a lie. Instead of addressing it, they say, "You're really upset. Are you okay? You've been acting strange." Suddenly, it's not about their dishonesty. It's about your mental state. You call out disrespect. "You're so sensitive. I was joking. You take everything personally." Now you're defending your right to have feelings. You point out broken promises. You're always keeping score. You're impossible to please. And you're no longer seeking accountability. You're the problem that needs solving. Nietzsche warned about this. How the weak gain power by making the strong question their own strength. The manipulator doesn't overpower you. They make you overpower yourself. Your brain wants resolution. When someone destabilizes reality, your mind grasps at any explanation, even false blame, just to feel solid ground. When someone scrambles reality, don't chase their narrative. Plant your feet in what you know. Say, "This isn't about my feelings. It's about your actions." Then stop talking. Silence starves manipulation of the chaos it needs to survive. The intimacy trap that hooks your heart. Someone sits across from you and opens their soul. They tell you about trauma, deepest fears, painful moments. Your heart opens, your guard drops. You feel chosen, trusted, special, and then they own you. This is the vulnerability weapon, hijacking your noblest instinct, empathy. They share something intensely personal early in your relationship. The story is real, the pain genuine, but the timing, strategic. Once you've received their confession, you feel responsible for their well-being. You can't abandon them now. You can't question them. You can't set boundaries. Because what monster would turn away from someone who trusted you? Nietzsche understood that power often disguises itself as powerlessness. When someone presents as wounded, you'll feel safe. They seem harmless and responsible. They seem helpless. Authentic vulnerability unfolds slowly, mutually, without agenda. Real sharing creates connection, not obligation. It builds trust over time, not leverage in a moment. Manipulative vulnerability comes with strings. The story is followed by immediate requests. Keep this secret. Be there for me. Understand why I act this way. Their openness becomes your emotional debt. The test. Does their vulnerability make you feel connected or obligated? Real intimacy creates freedom, not chains. When someone uses their pain as a leash for your loyalty, that's not healing, that's hunting. The hope hijack that steals your time. Let me think about it. Maybe next week. I just need some time. These aren't responses, they're ransom notes for your emotional energy. You're being held hostage by maybe. Welcome to the limbo loop, where dreams die slowly. This is manipulation by delay. They don't want to give you what you're asking for, but don't want to lose you by saying no. So they trap you between yes and no, where you wait endlessly for a decision that will never come. Nietzsche would recognize this as cowardice disguised as consideration. Every maybe later is really a no. They're too weak to voice. You ask for relationship clarity. They need more time. You request commitment to plans. They're not sure about their schedule. Weeks become months, months become years. And you're still waiting for an answer everyone but you already knows. What's being manipulated isn't just hope. It's your relationship with time itself. You stop making other plans, stop pursuing other opportunities, put your life on pause for their perpetual pause. When you ask for clarity, they accuse you of being impatient, demanding. They flip the script and make your need for certainty into a character flaw, your liberation. When someone can't give you clarity, give yourself closure. Set your own deadline. If they can't meet that timeline, let their silence be your answer. Because your peace is not a puzzle they get to solve at their convenience. The invisible competition that crushes your confidence. You weren't even racing, but somehow you've lost. Sarah handled this so much better. Most people would have figured this out by now. You're not like others I've worked with. They were so organized. At first it sounds like feedback, but it's the phantom race, where you're compared to invisible competitors in a contest you never entered. This is psychological warfare disguised as casual conversation. They're not helping you improve. They're making you feel inadequate. Because inadequate people are easier to control. Nietzsche understood that comparison is the weapon of the mediocre against the exceptional. They don't need to insult you directly. They just praise someone else in your presence. Your confidence evaporates, replaced by frantic need to prove yourself. You start questioning everything, scrambling to measure up to standards that don't exist, running a race with no finish line. Someone mentions how quickly their last employee learned, how naturally their ex handled conflict. Suddenly you're not good enough. You're lacking compared to some mythical person who probably doesn't exist as they describe them. You are not in competition with anyone but yesterday's version of yourself. When someone compares you to diminish you, they're revealing their insecurity, not your inadequacy. The antidote? Refuse to run races you didn't enter. When someone compares you to others, ask, "Did I ask for this comparison?" If no, then their opinion is irrelevant data. The memory bank robbery that steals your worth. They remember every favor they did for you with photographic precision. But somehow they've developed selective amnesia about everything you've done for them. This is the emotional audit, where someone keeps meticulous records of their generosity while erasing yours from history. When they need leverage, after everything I've done for you. But where's the entry for nights you stayed up listening? The money you spent on their emergencies? That history has been mysteriously deleted. Nietzsche warned us to beware of those who give with one hand while keeping score with the other. For manipulators, kindness isn't about love. It's about accumulating emotional currency. You start internalizing the imbalance. You feel guilty for asking for anything because their kindness is documented while yours is forgotten. You overcompensate, trying to balance books that were never meant to be balanced. Authentic generosity doesn't come with receipts. When someone highlights their giving while hiding yours, they're not being generous. They're making an investment in your guilt. You know that sinking sensation when someone brings up past favors as ammunition. How their gifts become chains, and their help becomes manipulation. Step out of the audit entirely. You don't owe what was given freely. When someone weaponizes their kindness, it was never kindness to begin with. Tell them, "I didn't realize we were keeping track." I wasn't. Because gratitude under pressure isn't gratitude. It's extortion. The fragility shield that deflects all accountability. They mess up badly. You confront them expecting an apology. Instead, they crumble. I'm just broken, okay? You know I'm like this. I never said I was perfect. Suddenly the wronged becomes the comforter. You're no longer addressing their behavior. You're managing their breakdown about being called out. This is the fragility fortress, where accountability bounces off like bullets off armor. They transform every consequence into a crisis, every confrontation into an attack on their existence. They don't deny what they did. They make you feel evil for expecting better. Nietzsche saw through this instantly. Some people use helplessness as power, making others afraid to hold them accountable because it might break them further. But this isn't genuine fragility. It's strategic vulnerability. You approach them about hurtful behavior and suddenly you're offering comfort. You ask for an apology, you end up apologizing for asking. You seek change. You accept that this is just how they are. They're training you to associate their accountability with your cruelty. Over time, you stop bringing up problems not because they're fixed, but because you can't bear being painted as the villain. Authentic remorse accepts responsibility without making the victim responsible for the perpetrator's feelings. Real fragility seeks healing, not immunity. You can acknowledge someone's pain without accepting their behavior. When their sorry comes with no change, their fragility is manipulation wrapped in tears, the chaos generator that feeds on your peace. There's always a disaster, always an emergency that only you can solve. Their car breaks down during your important plans. Their breakdown happens during your busiest week. It's not coincidence, it's the crisis factory. Being needed feels good initially. You're the reliable one, the problem solver. But the storm never ends. There's always another emergency requiring your immediate attention, another reason your life gets put on hold for theirs. This is manipulation by manufactured urgency. They've learned that crisis bypasses rational mind and triggers rescue instinct. When someone's drowning, you don't ask questions, you throw lifelines. Nietzsche understood that some people become addicted to being saved because it gives power without responsibility. Your stability becomes their resource, your peace becomes their currency. They're conditioning you to equate love with labor, care with crisis management, connection with constant emergency response. You become so accustomed to their chaos that calm feels wrong. Notice the pattern. Their life is always falling apart, but they never take your advice. They call during your busiest times, but disappear when you need support. Their emergencies coincide with your important moments, as if your success triggers their catastrophe. Real emergencies are rare and random. Manufactured emergencies are frequent and strategic. When someone's crisis always requires your specific help at inconvenient times, that's not bad luck. That's emotional extortion. The confidence assassin that kills your dreams. It starts subtly. A raised eyebrow when you share plans. Are you sure you can handle that? Don't get your hopes up. I just don't want to see you disappointed. They're not attacking your dreams. They're poisoning the ground where confidence grows. This is the dream killer. The most sophisticated manipulation because it doesn't forbid success. It makes you forbid it yourself. Maybe you should be more realistic. You know how these things usually go. On the surface, it sounds like protection. Underneath, it's systematic disempowerment designed to keep you small and under their influence. Nietzsche knew that the most effective control wasn't force, it was suggestion. Convince someone they're weak, and they'll build their own prison. Make someone doubt their capabilities, and they'll limit themselves more effectively than any external constraint ever could. You share excitement. They inject doubt disguised as wisdom. You start second-guessing, scaling back ambitions, settling for less. And they keep you exactly where they need you, dependent, diminished, grateful for their realistic guidance. They say things like, "Don't get your hopes up. I just don't want to see you disappointed. You know how these things usually go. Maybe you should have a backup plan." On the surface, it sounds like protection. Underneath, it's systematic disempowerment designed to keep you small, safe, and under their influence. This is how dreams die. Not in dramatic explosions, but in quiet erosions. One doubt at a time. One be careful at a time. One don't get too comfortable at a time. Until the voice of limitation becomes indistinguishable from your own inner wisdom. But here's what they don't want you to know. Your biggest dreams threaten their need for you to stay small. Your success challenges their narrative about limitation. Your growth forces them to confront their own stagnation. So they plant seeds of doubt, not to help you, but to help themselves maintain control over your potential. You've experienced this assassination of ambition, the way certain people's presence makes you feel smaller, less capable, more doubtful. How their concern always seems to coincide with your confidence. How their realism always dampens your enthusiasm. How their protection always limits your possibilities. The antidote? Separate their voice from yours. When you catch yourself thinking, "I probably can't do this," ask, "Is this my thought or someone else's fear that I've internalized?" Then move forward anyway, because your greatness doesn't need their permission, and your dreams don't require their approval. The awakening, your new reality. Now you see it all. The guilt that bent your boundaries, the reality scrambling that confused your truth, the false vulnerability that trapped your empathy, the endless delays that stole your time, the phantom competitions that crushed your confidence, the selective memory that erased your worth, the fragility shields that deflected accountability, the manufactured chaos that fed on your peace, the dream assassins that murdered your ambition. You see the patterns now, the subtle manipulations that felt like normal conversation, the psychological weapons disguised as concern, care, protection, love, the ways your kindness was used against you, your empathy exploited, your strength turned into weakness. Nietzsche was right. The most dangerous manipulations don't announce themselves. They slip into your life wearing masks of friendship, love, family, guidance. They speak the language of care while practicing the art of control. They convince you that their limitations are your reality, their fears are your wisdom, their needs are your responsibility. But something has shifted in you during this journey. You feel it, don't you? That subtle but profound change in how you process interactions. The way certain conversations feel different now that you can see the manipulation beneath the words. The clarity that comes when you recognize emotional weapons being deployed against you. You are no longer the same person who started watching this video. You've been psychologically rewired. Your emotional immune system has been upgraded. Your manipulation detection software has been installed. You now possess what Nietzsche called the eyes of the eagle, the ability to see what others miss, to recognize what others fall for, to stand where others stumble. This is your graduation from victim to victor, from puppet to person, from manipulated to magnificent. You now hold the keys to your own psychological kingdom. No one can guilt you without your permission. No one can confuse your reality without your cooperation. No one can trap your empathy without your consent. But remember this: knowledge without application is just entertainment. You must use what you've learned. You must practice these insights. You must choose your freedom every single day. Because they're still out there. The guilt hijackers, the reality scramblers, the vulnerability weaponizers, the dream assassins. They haven't changed. But you have. And that makes all the difference. Your relationships will shift. Some will deepen as manipulators reveal themselves and authentic people prove their worth. Others will end as you refuse to play games you now understand. Some people will respect your new boundaries. Others will increase their manipulation attempts when their old tactics stop working. Let them. You are no longer available for psychological terrorism. You are no longer accepting guilt you didn't earn, confusion you didn't create, limitations you didn't choose. You are awake, you are aware, you are armed with truth. The mission. So here's your mission, should you choose to accept it. Go forth and be ungameable. Practice saying no without explanation. Set boundaries without negotiation. Trust your instincts without validation. Choose yourself without apology. Live your truth without permission. Share this awakening with others who deserve freedom. Like this video if it liberated something in you. Subscribe for more psychological weapons of mass instruction. Because a world full of psychologically aware people is a world where manipulation becomes impossible. The age of innocence is over. The era of awareness has begun. And you, my friend, are leading the revolution. Welcome to your new life. Welcome to your new power. Welcome to the other side of the game, where you don't just survive the manipulation, you transcend it entirely.